evaluated, so purpose of the evaluation, outcome for it. So that is just a point that they want to look at over the next year. Only if looking at the other counties and looking at how they kind of handle that kind of unique role that they have compared to the rest of instructional employees. That it hasn't really been defined well in our contract yet.
Okay. There was I'm trying to get a document up real quick while we're just talking supplements that would kind of fall into those appendix. Do you have, so y'all have other supplements you're going to discuss now?
Yes.
Okay, before we leave supplements, I have something I wanted to talk about that's outside of something we've discussed so far.
Okay. All right. And since they we will the Aaron, are you okay with talking about that? Or do you want to wait?
I was just waiting for Carla. She's trying to get here.
And this is the,
Okay, so I guess we're not ready for this. She was in a meeting. She said she should be here by 3:30.
so you want to go?
Is it possible to let us go after?
Okay, so let's switch then and we'll go to social worker instead. And just put that one off to the side when someone else can do it.
Okay.
Sure.
First for this proposal, I would like to start by apologizing for the social workers from our abrupt exit from the last bargaining meeting. It was not because we didn't get counter proposal. We had to leave due to only being allocated an hour because we were on contract hours and we had to use our lunch break to attend that meeting. Next, the social workers would like to propose a counter offer for a $1,500 supplement for the social workers with clinical licenses and $1,000 specialty supplement for all master's level social workers and grandfather bachelor social workers. This kind of proposal of $1,500 for the clinical social workers being we only have 4 clinical social workers right now, and $1,000 for the 22 other social workers would only be an additional $28,000, which we would state that as a drop in the bucket compared to other specialists like our colleagues, like the psychologists and the speech language pathologists. We believe social workers should be granted these supplements for all the extra duties we perform, like home visits, where we risk our well-being by traveling to all ends of the county to make sure our students are safe and have all the resources they need. Include going into hotels, going into camps in the woods, down dirt roads and gated communities to provide all these things for our students. We also work with parents to gain a mutual understanding of physical and psychosocial problems and assist in the development and solution of these problems to best help our students. We also collaborate with community agencies to effectively meet the needs of our students and or their families. We also provide and attend community events that provide these resources to our students and their families, including laundry nights, back to school events, holiday resource events, and food pantry events. We attend truancy court for students who are truant, making sure we have good attendance for all of our students in this county. We also have a high caseload of at least 3 schools per social worker, which is a caseload of over 2,000 students that ranges across multiple age groups, including pre-K, elementary, middle, and high school, and sometimes having to travel to multiple work sites a day. Personally, I have 2 schools, elementary and middle school, and I do evaluations at the play center every week. And then also, this has been a hard to fill position over the years. We're still not at full capacity for social workers, which is, we have 25 in our allotted grant money. So having these supplements will draw more social workers to the district so we can provide better for our students. Also, as MSWs, which all of us social workers are, we can provide certain small groups, individual counseling, and other therapeutic social work services, but only to a certain extent. Our social workers with the licensed clinical social work can provide these students to a level other social workers and instructional employees cannot. Our licensed clinical social workers provide a level of clinical expertise and experience that benefits our students greatly. And having a supplement for these social workers will encourage more social workers to get their license and encourage more social workers who have this license to apply for our district. And that's why we're asking for the 1,500 and 1,000.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any questions. We'll take proposal under consideration. Sure, we have a clarifying question.
You said there, how many are licensed?
We only have 4 licensed right now and 22 total.
Okay.
Which would only come to a total, if you add all that up, to $28,000.
So the 4 that do have that, are they currently providing above and beyond services?
Yes, in IEP documents for individual counseling or group counseling, when students are assigned however many hours a week for those services, those social workers are doing those therapeutic services for our students with IEPs.
Okay. Okay.
And just to further clarify, how many openings did you say that they've had for social workers?
Right now, we currently have 3 openings, but 22 is the highest we've had in the past 3 years. Since I've been here, we've been around 19 to 20.
Okay.
Do you wanna bring one of your supplement things? or-
Yeah, there was, and this is, it's good stuff. Sure, we'll wait. Hang on one second, let me pull it up in front of me. So, as that supplements are open, there's our vocational stipends at the our vocational supplements at the high school level that are 4 per high school currently. So that basically covers your CTE, some CTE programs, right? And it doesn't really branch outside of that. So we've got the ability to broaden that, in talking with Ms. Ellis, and the folks in her departments, to take out the vocational, supplement, which is only 4, and expand to what's called a career technical student organization, sponsor stipend. So basically the amounts that she's wanting to set that at are at the same amounts that they use for, let me pull it in front of me quick. I didn't prepare a proposal. I just wanted to bring it to y'all's attention today because I knew we were going to be discussing it. But I wanted to put it on the radar. So essentially where they're wanting to bring it in at and what they can afford to with the CAPE dollars is at the same level of a student council rep. So right, currently you have a vocational club sponsor, that is at 4 per high school at a max of $646. Depending on their experience, it's a range from $592 to $646. But they've identified that CAPE funding that they can put it at the same level as a student council sponsor, which it ranges from $1,133 to $1,213. So they want to put it equal with that. And the good thing is it expands. She said any high school would have anywhere from 5 to 8 on campus that it would cover. So we'll bring that.
Cover like some of the, like, for example, the chefs that are not getting anything because they're in a CTE or any of those extra, things.
Anybody that falls under CTE programs that participates and carries a sponsorship in a career technical student organization. So in some schools, they might have a career technical student organization that several sponsors participate in. But just because so I clarified with her as we were discussing it. I said, so what you're saying is there would be, depending on the discipline under the career technical student organization, for each portion of that particular organization, they would be considered a sponsor for their particular group of students. And she said, yes. So that's why it expands it from 5 to 8.
How like we have like, yes, one sponsor, I guess, but you
Yeah.
have the one that competes in computer science versus the culinary versus the leadership. So each of them,
Correct.
even though it's one club, each of them would still be
Correct.
sponsor for their select students in that.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's what we will have to hammer out the language on how that makes sense under one umbrella. But I wanted to bring that to y'all's attention that we have identified some additional funding that we put towards that. And it helps with those folks that, done a lot of things for a lot of years. So
And then they per se would be paid out of this other fund situation, kind of like what we do like with the Title I or with anything else, they would be under a different.
yes, they'll be under CAPE funding
CAPE funding.
would do that. Because currently there's just a very limited amount of CTE ones at max that can receive a much smaller vocational club stipend. And so that's where that's going to expand. I think vocational, as we know, is kind of outdated language as everything's moved way away from there. Everybody I'm sure used to call, Lake Tech, VOTech at some point, right? But so this updates that language and provides a little more for those people.
What happens to the ones that I believe like robotics and FFA, those ones? I think there's stipends for them already.
Those would follow, it depends on where the school has those. So your vocational clubs would go away. They fall under this new umbrella, but there is already a robotics stipend. And there's other approved curricular clubs. So that's where the school has some other ones housed under that also. So that's what I had on that section. I'll bring back more official language as we
Right.
just kind of define it a little better. Yep. Yep.
Other state.
Because that's what I really pressed on. I was like, so the people that are receiving the vocational club supplement, I said, all those would be covered under this new one. And she said, yes, they would be. So we're going to double check the data on that and just to make sure. And if you guys need to move away from supplements for a little bit, until your person gets here, that's fine also.
Yeah, I guess it sounds like. Well, but yeah. Yeah.
So it looks like just the amounts for each level have been countered.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah.
Right, so I guess, well, they're printing, they're two smart things. So-
That's okay,
Yeah,
no
so,
problem.
So first part is just one thing, direct compensation. So the kind of proposal would be increasing the amounts from the counter offer from 2,500 to the counter 2,700. That would, I believe, cost an additional for performance pay, an additional 482,000 above last year counter proposal of 2,500.
Yeah, so he did quick calculation, you're right, it's about $500,000.
I'm trusting his numbers, so I'm using his spreadsheet, so I'm changing the amounts and just doing the subtraction for that. So it's for that, and then the other piece is still looking at a retention supplement, because one of the goals is really looking at rewarding the teachers that are staying, so we have some different numbers and some different language for that, that's being great.
Okay.
One thing is looking at when that piece also coming, that we did also look at there's neighboring counties and looking at the new average salary data. From 23-24 that we were behind before and we're getting farther behind. Looking at. Like for Marion County, their average salary increased from 51,400 in 22-23 to 53,000 last year. Sumter County increased up to 2.5 mil or 2,500. Seminole about 3,400, and then we increased 700. So we are looking at that, even with the raises from between, for last year, that we are getting farther behind our neighboring districts in average salary and median salary. So that's why we're looking at both the retention bonus and supplement and the increased performance pay to kind of bring those back into line, make sure we're not losing teachers for our neighboring districts that need to budget more with more in. One thing also, it's being seen enough to go from that. I wouldn't say necessarily we're asking for, or that looking at, we all obviously have this year's budget, like the ESY 139, whatever the state budget number, or one that gets made, or the AFR from last year. But I mean, 2 years in a row that there was that gap that we talked about between how much was allocated for instructional salaries versus how much was spent by the end of the year. So not so much asking for more, but just asking for what's being budgeted to be spent. Like if you're budgeting an increase of $24 million on teacher salaries, that $24 million at the end of the year is actually spent fully on teacher salaries, and that there isn't $12 million kind of left over at the end of the year.
Oh, you're welcome.
So one thing we also did that, seriously on some of the other proposals that the new language is good now,
Okay,
kind of just highlight that part.
I get it.
So, yeah, because.
It's the challenge, right?
We knew what was like kind of, not countered, so to keep the cost down now that we can. Or better actually cost out a retention, as you see in the, I believe the Titus fact that a lot of districts are doing these retention supplements. I think the most interesting one is Osceola, where they're doing like a percent retention supplement that's yearly and then kind of applying performance pay. To kind of value retaining their teachers. So to decrease costs, one thing is that we're proposing, to just kind of clarify that based on your most recent hire date, so the person is in the district for 20 years. Leaves for a year, comes back, like that restarts their clock, like they don't get credit for the 20 years of previous service before their most recent hire date. So like the most recent hire date, like restarts your 5-year clock, and restarts when that retention bonus kicks in. And then decreasing the amount from 100 to 50, only recognizing years of service in Lake County schools, so no outside years of service that are brought in. And then just some examples that you can see in 1, 2, and 3. So consecutive 5 years with LCS, you get $250. If you have with 11 years of experience, that would get you the 550, and then 25 years of experience, 5 outside, 20 consecutive, would get you only the 20 consecutive years for the 1,000. And then once again, the bottom language is clarifying that if you work one more day than the half the year, you get credit for the whole year and some of the FMLA.
So you're saying 50 for each year, correct?
Yes. So it should be about 1.1 million, since the other one's 2.2. Then I already just looked at the years that people were hired from, like January of 2020. Add up all their user service that was in spreadsheets. for just Lake
Including-
County.
Including administrator,
No,
and
just instructional.
so you don't want those 2 columns.
Well, actually, sorry, so the instructional. So I believe, I looked at the one that was years of service in the district only, so it would have captured that because the wording is years of service in the district, so it would capture that because based on their hire date in the district, so that.
So you only want me to use years of service in the district,
Correct, no outside experience, just from.
so no outside
No
experience.
outside experience, just from their most recent hire date. Whatever that is, so if they returned, even if they were here for 30 years, that was a break in service, you're just restarting it from. The newest hire date. I believe that should be about 1.1 million. I added up the years and multiplied it by the 50.
I'm gonna,
Yeah, please check my very.
I'll tell you that in a second.
We can take a look at
Yeah.
it after. We'll you can sit here and double check, and then when we go on caucus, we can do some double check, some calculations. Okay. Do you have any other questions on this?
No, it's simple.
Okay.
It's years of service from employee start date on contract, $50 per year. That's it.
Alright, SOPs. Now we can go to this.
All right.
You guys ready to present your? Thank you for waiting for us. Carla is our lead SLP for the district, and I thought it was important that she shared some of what she's been going through with recruiting, new SLPs. We thank you for the $2,000 offer that you made, but we still feel that we are, well underpaid in comparison to contract SLPs that we work alongside with. We want to feel valued by the county for being loyal employees. It's difficult working next to someone who makes anywhere from, $15,000 to $25,000 more than you for the same job that you're doing. So with that in mind, we're putting in a counter offer for $7,500. I know on the paper, it looks like it's $10,500, but we were already at $3,000 since 2018. There's some scenarios that I put on there. The first of an SLP that left, the second of one that is still here. And then on the back of the sheet, I also included some of the neighboring districts, they are serving their chief language technology.
Program specialist for speech language and DHH, and filling our vacancies has been extremely hard. I get turned down quite frequently. The direct hires, they're non-existent. They look at the salary and they say, no, thank you. I have had some people that I've offered a position to, and they've gone to HR, talked about benefits, and then once they saw what they're making, unfortunately, they say no again. I'm even having a hard time not filling the positions with contract SLPs. Our caseloads are extremely high. Like Erin has alluded, the discrepancy between the pay is just very significant. And unfortunately, a lot of SLPs are very knowledgeable about what's going on in our profession, and advocating for ourselves is incredibly high right now throughout the state. There's a lot of counties that are going through what we're going through. I think we're just kind of looking for, the compensation that reflects what we're doing. And, like Erin said, it's very hard to work in the same job and have those same requirements and see somebody right alongside of you making significant amount of more money. I had to reach out to several, even, administrators today about complaints from contract SLPs. So we really want direct hires. We do want people coming to our district. I've been here, this is my 12th year. We want people staying, we want people investing in Lake, and I truly feel like the only way to get them to is unfortunately the pay. That's just kind of my personal experience. Like I said, I stepped into this position at the beginning of July. Officially started in July 17th, and I just want to speak late. I love this district. That's why I have stayed. I've done with Orange before. I have tons of friends who are in Seminole, and they try to recruit me every year. And I want to stay, but it does make it extremely hard when Karen just said we can drive, 25-30 minutes to a nearby, think of what I'm saying, thank you, a nearby county, and make more money. Do you have any questions on anything that's been presented, or any of the figures, any of the district comparisons?
Yeah, we,
I know you guys have.
As you go-
Numbers, and you've been
Yeah.
looking at it. We asked you, thank you so much for kind of going through the numbers with us, and we had just some, the math is not mapping, like it's not making sense. We were running them, and I feel like our eyes have been crossed because we just continue like looking at everything and running the numbers and trying to figure out the benefits versus the contract SLPs. And then with a recent increase in the contract SLPs, that was hard kind of obtaining, numbers from them. And I obviously got that information pretty quickly into the job, just seeing the huge increase from last pay for this year. And it was just very enlightening that if we don't kind of stop it, it's going to continue happening. I don't think these contract companies are going to stop asking for more money. I get emails every day. They're asking for SLPAs to be contract SLPs. They're asking me if we need to fill vacancies in ESE with contract ESE teachers. So I feel like if we're unable to get those vacancies filled, they're just going to continue wanting more and more contract employees. And that's
unfortunately not something that we want in our district.
I guess I want to manage the controllable cost aspect of it, not that being tied to the contract.
I think we're all pretty aware of the unfortunate circumstances around all of it, right? And I mean, we've definitely, he's been eating and sleeping it and crunching numbers also. So, okay, well, I appreciate the proposal and we'll take it into consideration.
Thank you.
The only question I have was after I gave you all the emails, was there any other questions?
No.
Okay,
No, we tried with SLP too. We felt like that was representative of like a medium SLP pay. I know we had two
Like-
outliers that were in the 70s. And some numbers were low, but we tried to look at it as a medium, a second scenario.
okay.
Okay. Thank you. I know it's been a lot of time and effort with both parties, and I just appreciate you guys kind of freely working to exchange just data, right? It's not exchanging proposals or anything like that, just exchanging information so we all have a real clear picture. So we appreciate you guys' perspective.
Anything else?
I don't think so, unless there's any additional questions.
I don't think so.
Anything else?
No.
Okay. So we want to go back now to language,
Sure.
so that we just looking at this again, yes, we did the blue, so you'll be able to see
Okay.
the exchanges. So Article 10, teaching conditions. The first section was 5. Only thing in addition is for personal use on within the second paragraph. To make it understandable that they're not supposed to be on their personal devices, of course, all day long, in other words. At that point.
Yes.
Although we will, make sure that we do say there are some places that do not have phones in their classrooms, and so sometimes they have used their own phone, but they're using it to make a phone call to a parent or something like that. So then, of course, they are using their own phone, which we can't deter them from using it, but they do actually sometimes need to make those phone calls, especially if they don't have it close to them. I know sometimes they're in like a pod area, let's call it, or a couple student, a couple teachers can share it, whatever. Well, it's kind of hard to be on a phone plus watch your students. So sometimes there are things that, certain circumstances, but we understand no person, which we had asked for, of course, with the other idea. We still are hearing certain things, so.
As I'm still a little confused. I don't understand the necessity for personal use. Help me understand.
So I can use my phone, like if I'm in the back of the house to check for my school email,
Yeah.
but not check like my personal email. So like the way it's written, like that technically I'm not supposed to use like my phone to check school email during like using my own phone to check the school email.
I got you.
So just like no, it's okay, I can check, the school related things during class time, I just can't call,
Okay,
like, my doctor during class time.
I understand.
My friend or whatever.
Plus, it didn't specify that you, because the way it's written, you couldn't actually use anything to check any type of email or any of that while you got kids. Which means even work emails, the way it's written at the moment.
I got you. Okay, that helped me. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, Ken was okay. We go to 12. For future planning days.
That's self-explanatory. Okay.
And just with that language, it's well, that is exactly the language that several counties just used. So like, common they just changed like, the annual thing, but it's like a different section, but. Orange County has language about, for our remote working on non-stream contact days, and then this is that's even probably looser than what this proposal is. This is just the exact one, that's like.
I guess if we already give principals the freedom to approve this, I mean, I'm not always a fan of making a thicker contract just to make a thicker contract. I don't understand the purpose of something that's already occurs. So what's the need to add language to the contract when principals already have that authority to provide that
I
approval?
would say one thing about this, because, which is why we were asking for the duties for afterwards, different things that we're asking for. It seems like there are more and more administrators that are, lack of a better word, using the barter system to where they say, oh, well, I basically, I want to take this, but I'm gonna give you this. And it's like, there's nothing in the contract that basically says that they can't. And the idea around that now is because they're annual contract, and most of the teachers are gonna say yes to that because they don't wanna say no. Well, that's not fair to the teachers either, because the teacher is supposed to be there to be for their students, and the only time then they have to do anything is off of contract time. And they don't get paid for hardly anything, whereas if you look at some of the other counties, Marion County, they almost get paid for everything they do. They get paid if they substitute, they get paid if they do this, they do this, they do, almost everything they are paid extra to do. We are not giving the teachers enough time to do what they need to. And this would be a way that, okay, just like Monday, well, we could work virtually. Now, some of us couldn't because we didn't have power, but if you had power, you could have done some of your work throughout the day, possibly get ahead of some of your planning or some of your, whatever you could have done at that point. And again, we understand what you're saying, but also it's very, very difficult to come back when some schools, and I'm gonna mainly say it, it's the elementary. Elementary are very, very prone to using that barter system, let's say, or anything else at that point. Now we're hearing things about, the pre-plan, the planning days, the collaborative plans, the, different things that we're hearing back and forth. And it gets very, very difficult to bring, and again, sometimes people don't want to bring those things to the attention because we have retaliation. And then it's difficult to then do anything around the points at that point.
Chad, I think when we had first proposed some sort of remote work language, we were talking about in terms of the working climate that we're experiencing post-COVID, and that we're hearing a lot in news about the ability to have some sort of flexibility in their work, right? All the teaching and educators, we don't really. The only opportunity to have flexibility is on teacher work days. And we're seeing districts start to do this because they're recognizing the value in having some flexibility to attract and retain their teachers. And so when we first proposed this, we had talked about the value of having that flexibility to be competitive, because now Oregon's doing it, Symbol's doing it, St. John's is doing it. There are a number of other counties in the district that are, or in the state that are starting to do this. And so again, in order to stay flexible, or not flexible, sorry, in order to stay competitive and compete with this wave that we're starting to see with flexible working conditions, if we can offer that as another additional bonus to work for Lake County schools, it would be a way to attract.
Well, I think we see it a lot in Lake County. This happens a lot here already. So, okay. Mhm. No, go ahead.
Right, then it goes to 19, where you were going to kind of look at some things, I believe, to figure out what we want to do. We didn't put anything in there.
Yeah.
because I know we were still talking about.
I mean, and we're still looking at it also. And, you know, at the end of the day, all these proposals on the table cost more money. And we keep nickel and diming into this bucket, and there's only so much in the bucket. So we're looking at, okay, we got to wait. Now we've got new stack of proposals we got to cost out, and we're still kind of steadily looking at this. We toyed around with some ideas of kind of maybe what it could look like. Nice, you know, it's not an easy answer on this one. It's so hard, right? So we're still working on it. I don't have a counter proposal for you guys today, but as we go now, we'll be in position to bring this article back. We'll come back next session with some types of ideas, but I'm not sure what.
I also want to add with that, with 19 and the idea of the substituting, that if, I mean, I see on here, you're gonna have MOUs for the additional support for some of the schools. And that may be only some of the schools, whereas again, some of the other schools we're hearing are doing, you know, this and this type idea. And then if that happens, for example, if somebody has a Tuesday, Thursday collaborative plan, that they're losing the one day, so they're taking already the 2 days, then what's gonna happen then when they have to substitute? Is that gonna count then for that, and they're gonna have that pay then for that the third time, because that's what it says in the substituting? So there's some things that are gonna have to be logistically thought out with some of these other situations.
Okay.
Chad, a lot of the districts are doing where they're, taking the sub pay and they're dividing it amongst the teachers that are doing the subbing for the day. So if you're splitting a class, you would split that sub pay between those 4 or 5 teachers. If, in a high school, they would be split between the ones that are covering for the day.
So you're taking the flat amount and just dividing it by the number that.
Their upgrade or the TA contract, like, the only change was, it was $85 to $109, because that's what their daily sub, I guess, pay increased up to $109, but yeah, they're like, well, we're allocating a sub budget, we're gonna pay a sub, so we don't have a sub, that money's basically spent, was going to be spent for the sub, so divvy it up to those that are covering the sub. Don't hear that's like more money, but just using the money for the sub budget that was already out.
Yeah, and that's what we're wrestling with, looking at, okay, well, what's the value of the number of kids that are absorbed? Is it just 7 or more? Is
See,
it,
I
you know?
think some, they say a few kids.
Yeah.
Like, when I saw a few, I'm like, oh, that's, what the heck is a few, like, I wouldn't wanna get to that back and forth of.
No.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so hard to do.
In Volusia County, they even do it for non-rostered teachers, but for them, they only give them, they're able to get 1 hour of pay at their hourly rate for helping with the subbing versus the ones who have them on.
So if they subbed all day, they get 1 hour of pay at the end of the day for that day.
Extra, I mean, besides the regular pay.
No, I know. I just want to make sure I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
So you're like, your literacy coach that's called into sub for the day gets the
Because
one
they still
extra hour.
because they still have to do the work that they were supposed to do that day, they're still gonna have to do it.
We also just kind of, I guess, bring it to your attention, I guess, with 19 with the splitting of the students and so forth. Is there a way that, because I know it's hard to keep that data. Is there a way that something could be done with IT in focus? That there could be, you know, like I have additional 3 students or 5 students or, you know, whatever, I don't know, it was a thought that
Yeah,
someone, I think, brought to our attention or whatever, and I was like, well, I don't know whether that would work or not, but.
it would probably be you don't want to get into focus data and manipulating with that number of kids on the roster for a day or whatever the case may be, because then you're messing with FTE
You're
data.
messing with
So,
FTE.
yeah, so that is probably something that would, you know, that's what we've been thinking about too, because we have some schools that that follow current contract language, and they have as simple as a Google Sheet set up. They put for the day, they put what needs to be filled, people hop on and sign up for it, and then that's allowed them an easy way to track the release time also. So as we were talking about that this week, we're like, okay, well, that sounds like maybe a good method wherever we land, on even if all things stay the same, even if it's just tracking release time, at least there's a method for them to do that. Because we've talked about that. I feel like a lot of times it's just, and lots of it's probably sometimes emergency sub coverage, right? It's like, and those are probably the afterthought ones. Hey, I need y'all to do this. Let's do it. And they cover for that day because there's a last minute call in. So, and we've also kind of talked about is that there's layers to this, right? Because the hope is that, you know, teachers would be the last ones that would have to do this once, you know, we're going to do our darndest to get a sub in, right? And then on top of that, we've made some accommodations and signed with SEIU for folks to handle that are non-instructional. So you go through that layer, and then the last layer being we just don't want our schools erring on the side of splitting classes. But what we're finding is a lot of times that's the preference of teachers also is to go ahead and split the classes. So that makes it difficult. So so we'll continue to work on this piece of it. We don't have a clear answer, but I mean, I like the additional ideas that you guys have heard though.
And then the last, of course, would be 33, where we had talked about the safety things, and I didn't know whether things had changed, whether you found any updates. We're not confident with anything right now because we don't really know a whole lot, except that, yes, I still say that last paragraph should just be a D, which we can figure that out, but at that point, but other than that, I mean.
I don't have anything new today. Whenever we come back with this article, we'll have clarification at that point.
There are some safety things that they bring coming in Article 11, but there's nothing that's.
Okay.
Okay, Article 11 is workday and related matters. Section 1. Joint Leadership Committee. We have everything in the first paragraph. Going down to A, extra student supervision. We've added the word student in here. Basically bringing some of this back because for 3 years, it keeps coming back saying we're gonna go back to pre-COVID. And most of our elementaries have not. Most of our elementaries are basically from 8 to 3:30 with their students, minus of course lunch and playing time. And they are not wanting to do like an equitable duty schedule like we used to have before COVID. In saying that, you know, they don't have enough people, or there's too many stations we need to have people for, or whatever. Again, a lot of this is more elementary, because I think the secondary has things pretty well, and they have the equitable, and they have, even the extra duties before contract time that they pay for, and so forth. I think Sarah has some more ideas also, and some information.
Hi, I'm Sarah.
Hello.
I just feel passionately about this because I'm over at Seminole Springs Elementary. At least in the past too, when we had kids, you know, from 8 to 8:30, 3 to 3:30. You know, that is time where, you know, we're getting ready for the day, we're prepping for the day. And then on Tuesdays and Thursdays, especially when we have our, LCEA and our collaborative planning, we really don't have any time on those 2 days. And it really does put kind of a ding or a stress, within teachers on those days, because we really don't have time to go up and make copies. And, yeah, we try to plan around it as best we can on a Monday or a Wednesday, but you know, especially with 20 kids in our class, there's only so much you can do, and there's always last minute things that we have to do. And so having that time, I feel really, passionate about having that time for teachers to do what they have to do between those times, you know, especially when we first get in, yeah, you know, and those couple of days a week, you know, it's hard to even take a break and go to the bathroom sometimes when you have kids all day. So, you know, having that 8 to 8:30 and 3 to 3:30, that time for us, you know, to me is really important, and really important for those teachers that need that time to go up and make copies or to get ready for the day for their kids. So, which, you know, at least where I'm at, I haven't really seen yet, you know, we have those kids all day,
Okay.
so.
Okay.
Question?
No. Mhm.
B, we were okay with. C is there, and
So the view basically proposes I had it before. The only thing we're asking is that we have the 48 different schools at the moment, that in terms of the joint leadership committee, that as part of the conversation that they have, this includes a discussion looking at intervention acceleration blocks, pre-planned schedule, so basically not a definitive, like, yay or nay vote or anything, but just basically make that a mandatory point of conversation at those meetings. Which in some schools already do, but some schools might not.
Yeah.
So I know before that knows that, but it's not a, yes, this committee will vote and say this acceleration will be then, but just force the conversation of this is what we're seeing as teacher leaders in the classrooms during this acceleration time, or during pre-planning of, hey, think of this instead, and have this meeting this time instead. So you're adding that as a point of conversation for those meetings.
Yes, I think a lot of the schools that I've talked to, there is a lot of teacher input that goes into it. So it's probably not within the joint leadership. I mean, so, okay. All right.
I mean, also add the same thing is it may be, conversations may be happening within the coalition meetings, the leadership, whatever you want to call them, that everybody you know, they have different names,
Guiding coalition.
you know, but those situations, they may have some conversations, but a lot of those people are your non-classroom teachers. So in our aspect, you know, maybe somebody else in the conversation might be able to help a situation.
I think a lot of them are, you probably have some non-load bearing. You also have some department heads and grade level leaders too, which are classroom teachers.
Sometimes, yes.
Mhm. Okay.
Continuing with A, and then plan time. 3. For now, I mean, that's it. I will say that, you know, we are still collecting data, we're still collecting information. Again, you know, next year we'll look, we're kind of going to think about a lot of ideas. The planning period is very, very difficult, especially with the elementary level when they're continuing to take. As I said, you know, the back and forth, you know, we want to take another plan period. If it's an additional, you know, if it's one of those support schools, well, yes, they may get extra money, but yet other schools that aren't a support school don't have that extra money, but yet they're still giving up that time. So it is more difficult, the less time they have, the less time they have to plan. And sometimes is difficult for that. Individual planning, it seems like is getting less and less. So we do need to at least think about this and have the conversation to where we can give back some of these things to this. Liz, do you have something you want to say?
I just wanted to say that, you know, it's a concern for a lot of our instructors. And Lake County prides itself in striving for great communication and great relationships. And I think that our teachers really go above and beyond in taking the time to make calls and build those relationships with their parents and other staff members and students. But that is a resource, and the resource has been cut. What we're concerned with is most of our administrators are very great administrators. They have built relationships within the schools without an issue. The contract is kind of like the laws that we have. We have people that speed, it's not like everyone does it, it's only a small amount. The problem is that sometimes there's things that are specifically stated within the contract, and there's some things that, you know, we've addressed, kind of like what the intent is. But sometimes we have administrators that have a very fixed mindset, and they've done things in a particular manner, and they aren't as flexible in coming up with ways to meet the needs that they have for their school within the contract language. And then we have teachers who are concerned about filing grievances because they're afraid of some of the retaliation that they might have. I actually asked somebody last night, we had a situation, not recently, but we had a situation at our school where there was a teacher who made a comment that followed the contract, and basically she was put into an assignment that she's never had before, and it was in retaliation to what was said. And it was able to be rectified, but the way it was rectified is that she moved on to another school, and we lost a really great teacher because of it. And we want that same kind of relationship building among our instructional and administration as our instructional have with their children, have with their students. And it takes time, and it takes dialogue. And sometimes it takes a little creative ways of handling things, and change. And just as we're expecting, you know, teachers to make changes, some administrators need to make some of those same. And sometimes they're the most reluctant. And so what we're asking is that we're hoping that if and when we have teachers that will step up and actually file the grievance because it's not, not being listened to, that, we can expect that you will make sure that there is a fair, outcome. And that the teachers do not have to fear that there's gonna be negative repercussions simply because they're asking for the contract to be followed.
And I agree with a lot of what you said, right? I feel like we do have a lot that are building those relationships and getting things done. Then we have some that do need to change and do things in a better way. You know, retaliation is does it exist? I'm sure it does, right? We'd be silly to say that that does not exist anywhere. But that doesn't mean that we can declare every situation retaliation, right? Because we see it every day as we go through those really difficult, sensitive things in employee relations. And two things can also be true, I guess, is what I'm saying. And that works both ways. So, and that's why that grievance piece is part of the contract, right? And you knew that's probably what I was about to say. So I know that does take a courageous person to do that, right? But most of what I find is whether it's an administrator or a teacher or non-instructional, and we're dealing with things that involve a grievance, man, there's a tremendous amount of headbutting that goes on, and it's usually not nailed down to one particular issue. But if it is one particular issue and something is going on that's outside of the bounds of the contract, I mean, the first step and the whole idea of a grievance process is handle it at the lowest and most informal way possible, right? So what I would say is, you know, that grievance is a tool in the toolbox, but if there's an in-between that, if that helps them with a level of comfort to where if we're dealing with just a few administrators and they don't necessarily want to put pen to paper on a grievance yet, that we do work that in between also, because that's a big responsibility on you guys' part. And I understand that too. And, you know, I've told you guys plenty of times, I can help negotiate, navigate those waters, and you guys do the same. And we wind up handling a lot of issues like that sometimes on the background. But when it does get, I have to know if there's a contract violation, I guess is the point I'm trying to make without going on and on too much. If there's a contract violation, we need to know, because I want to rectify it. He wants to rectify it. Mr. Myers wants to rectify it. Mr. Feltner doesn't want it going on because he's trying to reel in those same folks too. So I think there is a lot of work to be done, and you know, but it goes back with the original topic of time. I mean, is super valuable. And like I said, if you guys are willing to make those sacrifices, and we've got to be willing to do that too. So, I just ask that you guys please, if there are things that are happening outside of the scope of the contract, I get, we've allowed some flexibility. We're never gonna, I don't think teachers or administrators want every school to look the same, because it just doesn't fit that way. This book isn't gonna make every school look the same, and it'd be impossible for us to think it would. But for people that are just, I mean, we know it's a high pressure environment. We put pressure on administrators put pressure on teachers, but usually everybody takes that stress and they convert it into something pretty positive for the kids. But when it gets out of bounds, we just need to know about it. And I'll just encourage you guys to relay that message to us, and we can strategically talk about it in the background. All right, how do we ensure that this is not going to blow back? Because that's part of that healing process that has to go on also, because most of the time that grievance just gets the paperwork out of the way. And most grievances that I come out of, that last meeting winds up being a pretty heartfelt meeting, and it can go ups and downs, but we usually wind up in a good place where the adults and the professionals in the room are in a good spot. So it's hard though to get people to have that level of comfort. And, you know, by the time it gets to us, we don't know what all that headbutting was usually that led to it, but we can work through it together. But, you know, I hear the message of time, and that's going to be valuable. It always is. So we do have full book's going to be a challenge. But it's it's good, challenging conversation, so. Well, I know there's a lot of things you guys will probably want to discuss in that, and we'll get to that process. So it looks like that's pretty much everything in 10 and 11.
I think the last piece I just wanted to make sure.
Okay.
Similar to what was planning, the school schedule and intervention piece, and that's why we're trying to just say, can we at least talk about it? And I think we, as a board and as an organization, are making a commitment to try to work together with the district. I think since Kathy and I have been here, that it's been our goal to work together with the district to solve these problems. We want to continue to do that. And I think what our goal is this year is to really try to collect really good data to help support the issues that we're having and trying to move forward. And like what Liz would say, I think we need to start raising the flag, which is really address it.
Okay.
I think that's all that we have.
Okay. So I've got some MOUs to share. We'll go ahead and get those around. So we put the ones that will probably have the most discussion, on the top. They're just MOUs, so we didn't make copies for everybody, but we'll point out what might be different in some of them as we go. And also give the gist of the highlights of what the current is. So I must have underlined, I apologize. So on SI schools and additional support schools, the retitled as additional support schools. I had some underlines on here, but I must have pulled them off. Basically, this takes away the SI title and it leaves the recruitment and retention supplement of $2,000 paid out under the same guidelines as they have before. But we have added a school on one. So you have Beverly Shores, which was there before. The new school is Eustis Heights Elementary. Then you have Groveland, Leesburg Elementary, and Triangle Elementary. So a couple of factors that usually come into this. Really, the driving one is hard to staff, and recruitment and retention for those. So I get there's some other elements that kick in under this with the extra planning time that's in there. But the money is basically to keep them there, because we need them there. And then we've thrown in some other benefits so that are the same, which is the ELC to any program in the district. So that means you could teach at Beverly Shores, but your child could be on school choice option somewhere else and receive ELC. And then the equivalent planning language is the same as it has been in the past. So I want to address kind of adding Eustis Heights Elementary and why these ones stayed on the list. Because I mean, I think we all know these are probably our top fragile schools, right? As far as from a staffing standpoint and from a data standpoint, these are the ones that have really either poked their head in and out of SI status or DA status in the past. And they would come in, you pull some resources back, and sometimes they would fall back in, or sometimes they just kind of teeter on the line. It's just kind of a back and forth thing. So we feel like it's necessary, even though they're not in SI status, to keep this agreement in place. And Eustis Heights is one that it's a heavy lift, and we put a lot of resources towards it. But as people know firsthand, yes. Yeah.
For a while to have that incentive.
And that was where, that it was kind of the one where they had charged out of SI status, and man, it was such a fine line and teetering, and just really staffing was a challenge there. So that's a proposal we have for the changes to additional support schools on here. And just to point out, these schools that as far as our most recent data that's come out, of the schools listed here, 4 of them show the most growth points for elementary schools in the district. So you got Triangle that moved from 36 to 47%. Beverly Shores, 40% to 47%. Leesburg Elementary, 38 to 44, and Groveland, 38 to 44. And we feel like a lot of that work that's going in, and where, we used to have a little additional time tacked on to the day, but we pulled that out of last year's. And I think we were still able to, as we weighed out with administrative and district level staff, they're like, we don't feel like that's what's making the difference. I think it's their time together in collaborative planning that they feel like is really making the district difference and working together. And then you look at ELA learning gains for the bottom quartile, Beverly Shores, 72 points, and led, they were ranked number 1, for bottom quartile learning gains. And Leesburg Elementary wasn't far behind with 60 points in the 4th spot. So I feel like these are some things that are making an impact on these schools, and that's why we feel like we need to continue on.
I'm assuming, from what I'm remembering, this is the exact same language, basically.
Yes.
But you're just put in what you needed to for the addition.
Yep.
In doing that, do you know if, you say the 5 of them, yes. Do you know, I know for a fact 2 are, but do all 5 of them do also the Wacky Wednesday?
I'm not sure, what they're doing as far as from a Wacky Wednesday perspective.
Because I know that has been a somewhat of an issue for some of the teachers, in the fact that, again, they kind of feel obligated to say yes to the Wacky Wednesday, the way it's kind of presented, or Wonderful Wednesday, whatever you want to
But it
call
was voted on. I imagine we're talking about Beverly Shores.
Usually they're voted on. I think Leesburg Elementary. is.
Okay, Leesburg also?
Yes,
Okay.
I believe both of them are.
Okay.
I haven't heard anything about the other ones, whether they are waiting or whether they're gonna do it. I do not know, on those. But the unfortunate thing with that, and I don't think that would be so much of an issue, in the fact that when they usually have the Wonderful Wednesdays, I'll go the opposite way, just call it Wonderful Wednesday. When you have those Wednesdays, sometimes the Wednesday afternoons were also used, meaning they didn't have that plan time either.
Mhm.
So unless it was your turn, which for most of the time, it's every 5th or 6th week that you have the Wednesday plan time. So you're losing the Wednesday afternoon, and you're losing your plan time on Wednesday because of the Wonderful Wednesday in those cases.
So this goes back to just because it's replacing individual planning times with collaborative planning time and
Right.
facilitated planning
And so,
time.
and I understand around it, I'm just bringing in like something else, in the fact that, to think about that, many of them will take that Wednesday afternoon, which means they really only have the Monday and Friday as an individual plan time.
So
And what happens, for example, at those schools, when they have to split, or they have to substitute, or they have to, because that's gonna be, for example, they're already taking 2 plan times.
mhm.
So now they're gonna be, if they have to substitute on a Monday or a Friday, let's say, then that's gonna be already taking their 3rd one, so they should be compensated for that. So how is that gonna come into play with?
I think, but there's trade-off, right? That when you have a Wonderful or Wacky Wednesday, whatever you call it, there's something else that happens, right? On the other side of giving up what you're saying they're giving up. In most of these situations, there's something else that's happening in exchange for that. So I think that's what we have to be clear on too.
Right, but that's what I'm saying, so. In the fact of doing that, and I understand that, but some of them, for example, that will have it, they give them the Wednesday afternoon.
Mhm.
Some of them do not give them the Wednesday afternoon. So when it's not your day, you literally go all day with nothing, so you're 8 to 3:30, And again, you're mainly talking elementary teachers that you're going 8 to 3:30. With no break besides lunch, unless you have that particular Wednesday that is your day to go over data and whatever it is, planning and what they need to do for that particular day.
But what I'm hearing is that nothing else is happening for those teachers. They have not gone any other time because it was not their day. Or have they received any other time?
So
What's
our
that?
understanding is they'll get lunch, but if it's their particular day, they may. So if it's their day for Wacky Wednesday,
Uh-huh.
they'll have planning pretty much the whole day.
Okay,
But if it's not their day,
uh-huh,
then they don't have planning period, and that's just on Wednesday, my understanding. So I
Correct.
think.
So if
for-
they don't
for me,
have it.
It's the compounding effect,
But-
Wacky Wednesday plus this MOU.
Correct,
they're
but-
doing both.
Okay.
what have they done for those that did not get?
The planning.
Nothing, they don't have anything all day
No.
long, they have nothing all day
No, but
long.
not on all, another day. They have not received any other type of.
Like, they
time.
do anything release?
Have they done any relief for them?
I mean, Terry,
At the school that has, both of us are at a school that has the wonderful Wednesday.
uh-huh,
She's science, well, the science department, let's say, it's their turn to have it. So she has planning all day, I have nothing, so she has planning like half a day or 3 hours or whatever it is that they do in that school. So she has planning that day. All right, and then if she has a Wednesday afternoon meeting or faculty meeting or whatever, then that's fine, she's had a little bit of planning. On the other hand, I'm teaching English, it wasn't my day, so I have nothing between 8 to 3:30. Plus then on Tuesday and Thursday, which is usually the 2 days, plus Tuesday and Thursday, I have nothing. So you're talking Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. With,
Not self-directed.
that's not
yeah,
self-directed.
so that's why I don't wanna say they have nothing and don't have planning time, because they're planning, they're collaborative
They're
planning with their
they're
peers.
Individual plan. time.
Self-directed.
As
Okay.
self-directed, they do not have the self-directed individual plan time.
Mm-hmm,
They would have a Monday and a Friday for those particular schools that have this. And or another school that may possibly do that they're doing, as I'm saying, the, give and take, let's call it, that I'm gonna give you release time for taking the other plan time. But again, that's more elementary in the fact that we have a secondary teacher here that they don't have to worry about any of that. I don't understand it. I mean, they bring up Wacky Wednesday. It doesn't come up to them, and so they don't have to worry about, the other stuff.
Here's my question. In your example, whether you did the whole planning day and you didn't, it was in your turn. At the end of the year, how many of those days have you had and how many of those days have you had? Have they brought you that information? Because on the rotation, I can count when I make a schedule elementary, if I do this through the whole entire year, I'm gonna have this teacher missing their day, X amount of days, and this other, oh, it matches. So I plan strategically. So I'm asking you, they brought that information?
Yes, so there have been times where we have had conversations with them and they said that there was a set schedule and then it wound up not being followed or wound up being changed. So there were people some people got the planning they were told they were gonna get, some people didn't, because things happen.
Things happens in the, okay.
Right, and so, again, I think the Wacky Wednesday issue alone is a whole nother conversation. I think the issue here is compounding. If we're gonna do this MOU, and then they are also doing the Wacky Wednesday on top of that, and then they
Okay.
are also being asked to cover classes on top of that, then we're getting an area again where we're seeing an unequitable distribution of time, especially at the elementary level. Because I can tell you at secondary, a lot of planning days, they're told, go work virtual, go work from home. There's not even you do this and you get this,
Okay.
it's just given, right? But at elementary, we're seeing cases where they're saying, do this vote, so you have 2 planning periods and we'll give you your teacher work days off. Or do this vote and we'll do Wacky Wednesdays and I'll give you Wednesday afternoons off. There's some sort of like trade-off.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
there's a trade-off.
But then there's other schools that don't have it at all. So again, it's an equitable and accountability issue.
And that's why we wanted to codify it.
And I will also add that, for example, then if it's a 4-day week. Now I really lost, because now I only have
Usually.
one individual plan, because in a lot of times, and that's why they pick Tuesday, Thursday, to do the collaborative plans because we're off on a Monday and a Friday when we have, you know, the 3-day situations. So that also then compounds on those particular weeks when you have situations.
Mhm.
There's a real likelihood that a teacher could go through a week and have one period in an entire week of self-directed planning.
Mhm.
Because the other ones have been occupied by these directed plans.
Mhm.
Was,
The other thing is, there's been certain things and this might be part of it, some of the other, that there's been votes. But the
Mhm.
votes were the year before, which we understand. It's
Mhm.
the year before because you're trying to.
Yeah, you gotta build a master schedule.
Understand. But then there's been people that have stated that they voted on it, but it was like they voted on it like 3 years ago. And I think those votes really need to happen. Like,
Well, they should be happening annually, and it's okay if it, to me, I'm okay if it's at the end of the year to guide the next year, because right, there's not gonna be enough turnover in there to shift that probably, and you got a plan, but they should be happening annually.
Kind of speak.
Mhm.
A lot of collaborative plannings aren't exactly collaborative, as most of the time they're either the instructional coaches talking or leading it, or just, you know, it's not really collaborative amongst the team. This is another meeting, we got this stuff to go over, you know, and it's not, I can't really call it a planning sometimes because. you
Is
know,
this your personal experience?
Just teachers at my school want to see,
Okay.
so. And a lot of, you know, it's usually instructional coach, directed or something like that. It's not really like the team gets together, let's go to this, it's more of that,
Well, and I feel there is a compound effect, right? I hear that. And there's a reason there's money attached to all of it, right? And at the end of the day, these are heavy lift schools that are high stress for the people that are working in them, no matter what you're at. But the methods that whatever's going on, granted, it probably needs to be tweaked, but the data is showing that they're making gains for the first time in a lot of years by collaborating and working. Because I can tell you a lot of the folks that in the turnover, I've seen it myself. I guarantee Kiana has a good idea of the, Ms. Peterson, excuse me, has a good idea of the turnover in each one of these schools. And those folks need that help because they hadn't spent, like a lot of the veterans that you guys talked to, hadn't spent a whole lot of years making lesson plans and targeting standards and doing all the things, you know, to get where they need to be. So I hear your concerns, right?
I don't think it's an issue of that we don't want them to have the support and proper planning, and
Mhm.
especially like you said, for our newbies. I know for me, that was a life-saving when I came right out of college to have those collaborative plannings. I think it's how can we find more time for them and make it equitable and ensure that their time is protected as much as possible.
And also, like you said, it takes a special kind of mettle to be in one of these schools. It takes a special kind of person to do it. It's not easy, as some of y'all all know. And we've seen the turnover that comes out of the schools. You know, having one class go through 3 teachers in 1 year. So, you know, finding a way that we can retain those teachers who have got what it takes to be in a place like this and to make it better. Because that's the kind of person that you want to keep at that school.
And I hope that, you know, the instructional coaches, administration, non-load bearing teachers kind of help out because help out individuals who don't have those planning days where they only have lunch because sometimes physically that's grueling. You might have someone pregnant or any number of issues that pop up. And so I really hope that some other supports are in there for those individuals with their special issues as well.
Yeah, I would hope so. Okay, the next one that probably had a decent amount of discussion to be had was on our Title I and critical shortage. So we've made a couple of adjustments there. The amounts are the same, 500 for our Title I supplements. The critical shortage bonus at $750. The change that we had were in the areas of CTE. We brought in some new programs, advanced manufacturing technology, It's kind of umbrella over several course codes of things that go on, machining and different things like that. And then the aerospace technology, that covers, the course codes that are falling under your aviation and drones and all the different course codes. So we've never listed by course code because that gets kind of weird. And plus I don't want to give the impression that, oh, if I teach each one of these courses, I get $750 critical scores for each course that I teach, right? So that's where we, consulting with our CTE, administrators, these were the two that, they said would pull under the fold and needed to be added. And then the TV production, just staying true to what's truly a critical shortage bonus, it's not considered a critical shortage area. We haven't had any trouble with that area, so that's why we've added those two under CTE and deleted the TV production.
Okay, does the ESE one here, does that cover, like some of the high school situations? I mean, when we're covering up to like, you know, I forget what they're actually called. There's a couple of different situations, and I don't think it's access, though. I think they need something else.
It should be.
I would need a name to verify the position,
Yeah.
because I don't, no, correct, like.
So there are 18 to 22-year-old classes. Is that kind of what you're referring to? There's possibility.
Yes, I never
Yeah.
look back at my information.
Is it transition?
Say that again. Transition. Yeah.
See, but I,
I think
Okay. Yeah.
that would be one, and then you're still not wanting to put intensive reading for secondary in here at all? Cause I know we've had a lot of questions about that.
I think that blows our number wide open once we do that. So, I mean, there's affordability factor here also. So we have not added that.
I know those are the two questions that,
Mhm.
that I know we've had. Is there, and have you used, like, I'm assuming you're using the HR data to put these in here?
Yeah, like CTE, those are the ones that we relied on our CTE department to, you know, they know the ones that are the most difficult and challenging just because of the specialty skills that are involved in it. But yes, we work, I mean, ESE is our number one in all categories to difficult to fill. So
Yes, but I don't see like all categories, cause I don't see like a pre-K ESE or VE classrooms or certain.
well, that, I mean, the whole point is you've got to, between the IST and ISTB classrooms, you got to have some differentiation there. Otherwise, everybody's going to go be a VE teacher and nobody will go in those classrooms. So that's kind of the reasoning behind that.
Go ahead.
So could we look at what those other ESC classrooms that Kathy was talking about, what they're called? And see if there's data to support those areas.
the ones that you're talking about, the 21. I would need you, I would need I need the position so that I can figure it out.
Because in my mind, I think what she's thinking of is the equivalent, because the intensive support and intensive behavior support options, those are traditionally like elementary, primary, right?
No, they're at all
No,
levels. No,
yeah, they're all
they're all levels.
That's
Yeah.
the name, so we.
Yeah, the only one you mentioned that might, if there's a classroom that has 18 to 22s in it or some super seniors or something like that, we'd need to check and see.
This is a teacher who has,
Okay, well-
who has had it in his students that age in his class
Okay.
last year. I don't know if there's any this year.
Liz, you recall maybe if some of those are blended? Okay. All right. So we can check on that.
The sample that you provided, they were IST, so they qualified for the.
Here's the other one. Is the Will the certain CPE areas then also be covered under the K fund? Or is this just?
Yeah,
just a
if-
regular funds?
if they're part of, if they're an advisor for those groups or a sponsor for those groups, then they'd be part of that supplement.
No,
Like the bonus, like the critical shortage bonus payment itself, like,
payment itself.
is it like for the aerospace, CT areas, like, is the funding for that critical shortage bonus coming out of Cape funding or?
No, this is all, our critical shortage has been out of, general, I'm sorry.
And then with aerospace technologies, you said like the unmanned stuff, 'cause I think like at Leesburg, our RTC instructor does like the unmanned stuff like that in last year, so that would be like one of the things that.
Yep. So there's advanced manufacturing technology 1 through 4 and capstone. There's aerospace technologies 1 through 3, private pilot ground school, and then unmanned aircraft systems 1 through 3. So that's pretty much all of them that are covered then. So we'll get you some, we'll double check on some of those ESC positions. We'll tell you the ones, basically, you wanna know, we can provide any ESC positions that are not covered on this, if that would be helpful. And most time it's because we gotta push people towards, the same thing we deal with our TAs and some of the work we're doing with non-instructional. We're trying to put some extra cherries on top to get them to go into those ISTB and ISD classrooms.
Constantly getting emails about that, like, I'm an ESV teacher, why am I not receiving
Mhm.
this? So that data would be
Yeah.
helpful for us.
Yeah. And maybe even the again, reading possibly a good data for us to have, because we usually have someone, a couple people call up, well, how come, you have math, which is, like an intensive math in high school, yes, I understand that, but then we're not doing the same then for the reading, so they always wonder why are you giving it to math and not giving it to reading? So it's always that same.
I get it, and at some point, you just gotta draw some lines, right? And that's hard, because being a reading teacher, I get it, it's hard.
Oh, it's hard.
And and if you pull, as we know, DOE is required to release a critical shortage sheet every year, and it's basically every single teacher on earth, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a plot.
Yeah, right.
Short list.
So they just say everybody, but then you say, wait, there's a teacher shortage, like, oh, no, there's not. So, so the next one is the evening and night programs. I think we gave this out last time. So if you guys are ready to sign on that, then we could sign on that. And then, we've got, the Lincoln Park, which that was last time also.
And I did have a.
Yep.
I had a chance to look at it, but I did have a correction on that Lincoln Park one.
Okay, where's that at?
Need to double check.
It's the 1 to 145. It's called something different.
Peer counseling is 1 to 145.
And then the 145 to 230
Is planned.
is considered planning. According to someone that is working.
They
Okay.
call it peer counseling. And
All right, we'll
then
have to look.
I
at
have
some.
to look at it because I don't know why they call it. So then let me repeat, 1 to 145, peer counseling.
Mhm.
And then what?
And then 145 to 230 was planning.
Planning.
And maybe that's just something that, maybe they were given that this week instead of,
So they put
I don't know.
peer counseling is,
They may want to check just to.
peer counseling is for them to come in the hours, for kids to come in,
The office
schedule,
hours.
The office.
office hours.
Which would be lab, right?
Which could be lab, I guess.
Correct.
Like, you could put it as
Well,
lab.
they've got it
slash-
reverse.
Reverse it, lab
Okay.
slash peer counseling.
Okay.
maybe.
Okay. All right, well, let's get some feedback on what exactly is happening and then,
Okay,
That's fine.
okay. All right.
Just for the night school.
Yep.
I am in front of you, but I just want to remind the principal of the hours, and I think we were told different hours on Monday. I think, but so,
different hours.
yeah, I honestly said like 7:30, but I remember seeing this thing, I'd be like, wait a second, that's not, I remember seeing it. I forgot to write down the hours, 'cause I think.
These are definitely the hours,
Okay,
so,
So be sure to.
because it was because of money, so, okay, so we'll make sure that clarification goes out.
Oh, yeah. Now, make sure.
No, then that's another one, okay, Jessica says the same thing, she's got a different.
It says 3 to 7
3 to 7.
is what I have it in an email right now.
For night school?
Okay, all right.
Okay.
All right, well,
So maybe we should
these
wait
are-
to
yeah.
make sure that we.
okay, well, we'll make sure it gets uniform and gets communicated, so let's get some correction on that. Okay. Next one I had was, transfer a donation of sick leave. I added, down at the bottom, was a result of our meeting, basically adding the last two: unforeseen circumstances regarding any donation may be evaluated by the sick bank committee to reach a resolution. That's basically, we had talked about with you guys and SEIU. That's a good committee. We're all represented on it. Everybody's really familiar with leave, so we would hash out any issues that came up with that. And then lastly, that both parties agree to return to negotiations regarding this topic upon request of the other party. So if we do run across stuff or we get head to head on something and we need to sit back down and officially, negotiate it again, that it's in there.
And you didn't have any other. Nothing still has come up about any of these things at all?
No.
Donations or anything?
No,
Just ask them to make sure.
no,
Okay.
it's going really well. I think maybe we had one in the past couple weeks. We figured we'd have a lot more than what we had, but it's truly been a tool for people in dire circumstances is what we were looking for. And sick bank bumped along just fine. We didn't have to ask for more hours, so, we're in good shape there.
Next year.
Yep. Hopefully we can just add it in and at the same time put in board policy too. So I think we've got it. We got a lot to chew on, right? I think I got a lot of stuff to take back to the academic side of the house. I need to spend some real good time with them. And then also, we'll go back and talk money. So I don't think there's any real sense in us calling a caucus at 4:50, but I do want to get some dates on the calendar.
Yes. So if you want some time. Definitely not then next week, so.
Yeah,
I'll stick with Wednesdays, like the 21st or 28th.
the 21st sounds really good. So we can get back in. I don't want to wait too long. With next week being the first week of school, I mean, I don't want to do that to anybody, right? So, include myself.
Otherwise, I was going to say the 14th just because, but I figured that would be like.
Yeah,
Not a good time.
and we need to, quite honestly, we need to spend some real time, right? So, and the problem is gonna be me finding people next week that aren't totally occupied with the little people, so.
Something else.
So 21st,
Or the 28th.
So I kind of wanted to ask this too. So I know you guys are gonna have some other work you gotta do, right? As far as certification and things like that. Do y'all have to hold another vote? You're waiting? Okay, so we don't,
Follow process.
okay,
Also,
all right.
waiting.
So you'll let me know when that becomes an
Someone-
time interference, right?
Someone should have received it.
Yeah, we get,
Came back
yeah.
with it Just the other day.
Yeah.
Was it yesterday?
Yeah.
My days are just all. It was this week, let's put it that way.
Okay,
So
You
you should receive
Yep.
something that gives you 15 days to do
okay,
something.
Get the bargaining data.
And then it then goes back up to PERT to then, they will then set an election day,
okay.
which has been very, very long in coming because
Mm-hmm,
they haven't done, they've done what? 8, 9
okay.
in the whole state so far?
So I know I got I got an email from PERG today on some, asking for some unit clarification, so, on SEIU, so I imagine we've probably gotten yours also, so we'll,
I think that was clarified.
well, it might not be, that might not be the right words, but it,
The ours is all clarified and done, but I think
Yeah.
there's something else that they're asking for now.
they were asking for some verification from us that I got from SEIU, for SEIU today, so I'll look and see what we've got on y'all too. so.
Yeah.
Okay,
A day or two ago, there was a
If
PERT.
you don't see anything.
I haven't gotten
heard
anything.
About us, let us know.
okay. I've been trying to watch anything that comes through on PERT, but it seems like it's been SEIU related, but let's get with you in the morning and double check and make sure.
Yes.
Is
Cause
that the
Valerie has
dates?
all.
Yeah, I mean, y'all want to put,
Elizabeth will not be here the 21st, but she's okay with still having it. But that's.
well, I'm thinking in terms, if I need an executive session, the 28th works better. Mm-hmm,
We do it on 6th.
mm-hmm. Cause I think we've got other stuff going on around on the 19th, around the workshop that I'm not sure that'd be.
Y'all good with the 28th? How are we on time? Are y'all okay with 3 o'clock, or was that hard to get here?
The next one will be that LCEA, right?
This was
Yeah.
still be in there.
Mhm.
It would have to be at least 30.
You want like 4? Or
So the 20th at 4.
I like, 3 o'clock wasn't hard.
I wanna say we started at 3:30 last year
Yeah,
for the most
3:30.
part, and then some people came in late. Yeah, Haley's agreeing, but
3:30 is easier for me.
3:30?
3:30 or 4 it would have to be because. I don't think 3 would work because you wouldn't be able to get it.
And if there's things that you need pertinent people to be there and they're gonna be lagging, just like today, we can kind of adjust the agenda as we go around, right? Just like RTC had to get out of here early, boom, let's move to the front, you know, so if we want to say at 3:30 is fine.
At LCEA or here?
At LCEA. Cause we've got, and that works better anyway, because we've got to do, we've got to set up a session, which I imagine will be a Wednesday with SEIU, so I can get them in between. Yeah, cause I'm not waiting on the same type of stuff for them, so. 21st for them tomorrow. And SEIU will do 21st, and then, okay.
Can I ask a question about time?
Yep.
Guido, for your data analysis for team, and the magic that you do behind the scenes for many hours to make sure that we get our performance pay. I know typically that's mid-October, right, that you're getting all the data and you're starting to sit with everything and work. Is that what we're looking at again this year, or?
We have to report by the end of October, FTE survey 5, which is all evaluations for last school year. But technically, it all depends when we ratify contract. I cannot move forward with performance pay until we have a ratification of contract. So if last year it was September, but the evaluations weren't finished until beginning of October, so then we processed. Same thing is gonna happen this year. We're processing. It looks like Ms. Howard is ahead. So it might be that we may be able to process sooner, but it all stems on when we agreed and everything's ratified and board approved. Then I can move forward. So it really stems when we ratified.
So
Yes.
typically it's like a month in between ratification and when you can have it.
Correct. Right now, because of the way DOE is providing data, it's faster. And we're able to move a little bit faster. The only thing that's holding us typically at the end is high school, because AP data always comes in late and they keep trickling in with testing. So therefore, that's one of the biggest ones. So,
The ACE data doesn't come out until Tuesday, so.
And that's
You don't have that yet.
AP,
I
ACE,
think it's the first year that ACE, I think, is counting for our evaluation, so.
correct.
Really
So
can't do it.
we're always waiting for them last. And then once we have that, then it provides us data for us to be able to complete everybody who gets whole school scores. So therefore, it's then we have time for appeals by contract. So it like, I can, it's typically after October we process.
Yeah, that. If we always we know what we're aiming for right before the break, so.
Yeah.
As quick as we can before break, because that's what's important.
Our goal is to process that before the break. That's our goal, but it all depends when we ratify, so.
And typically, it's usually there's a few little pieces we're waiting on, right? Because they do a lot of they do as much front end work up to the line as they can.
That's really what I was asking.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
That's the only way we make it, goals always try and maybe hit first little break, but sometimes it has to happen before the big break in the middle, so. Okay, any other questions or anything for the good of the group? All right. It's August 7th, 2024 at 4:59 PM. This concludes today's bargaining session.